What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We're going to be reviewing a video titled Why Men Stop Dating. Let's check it out.
So what exactly is dating? Now, the definition is pretty simple. It's a stage in the romantic relationship in which two individuals engage in an activity together, most often with the intention of evaluating each other's suitability. It falls into the category of courtship, consisting of social events carried out by the couple. Now, how does that translate into real-world application? Well, over in India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, as many of you guys know, arranged marriages are pretty common. That being said, love marriages, or the idea that people should actually meet up and see if there's any compatibility, is becoming more common. Over in Japan, there's a service called Omiya, in which the parents hire a matchmaker. The matchmaker takes resumes, pictures, then finds what they believe to be a suitable person, and then the parents meet and they all agree, and then they pressure the couples to actually get married. Now, Singapore took it to a whole other level. We're talking the Social Development Network, the SDN, whose sole purpose is to promote marriage. In fact, the state-funded SDN touts marriage as what should be a person's #1 life goal. My favorite, though, is how the Nayagatan people of Ethiopia do it. According to their traditions, there are only 4 paths to marriage. There's arranged marriage, supervised courtship, there is inheritance, and abduction. I mean, imagine that. You just went out for a beer and all of a sudden you got a hood over your head, and next thing you know, you are at the altar marrying this woman you've never seen before.
Yo, that's crazy. They have abduction as a method of marriage. Yeah, that doesn't sound like a terrible idea.
But seriously, gents, when it comes to dating, most people will tell you it sucks. And the research backs this up. 10 years ago, it was bad. Now, 47% of Americans say that it is even worse than it was a decade ago. In fact, since the Me Too movement, 65% of men say dating is harder. And the women weren't far behind. 43% of those polled said that it had become more difficult. So why is dating dying? Specifically, what's making it disappear? Now, the idea of dating is a fairly new construct, even in the Western world. In fact, the word goes back to an 1896 column in the Chicago Record. A columnist named George Ada was writing about the working class and their lives. And he was talking about a guy named Artie and what was going on with his relationships. Apparently, his girlfriend was losing interest in him, and whenever he confronted her about this, he simply said, "I suppose the other boys are filling in all my dates." Now, it took a few decades for the word to stick, but women were out on their own engaging with men, and these men would buy them food and drinks or gifts. And in the eyes of the authorities, this made them whores. Basically, they viewed this as the same as turning a trick. Now, by 1910, girls going out on dates like this were known as charity girls because they didn't take any money for their favors. They were just simply out to have a good time. In fact, there were reports of prostitutes in the 1920s complaining about these charity girls because they were putting them out of business. In the 1920s and 30s, we saw the rise of the shop girl, a single woman working in a department store, living in a city, a larger place where, she lived on her own, and she was free to make up her mind who she was going to engage with. All the men that were coming up, buying things in her store, courting her, maybe asking her out. Yeah, she was kind of setting her own agenda. Now, the 1940s is, marked by World War II. And guess what? Women are now in the workplace. They've got a taste of what it's like to actually make pretty good money, and things never went back.
The problem is nowadays, if a girl wants easy money, which unfortunately a lot of girls are jumping into OnlyFans, they're jumping into basically the sex industries, and they're promoting themselves, and usually on the way they're not only getting all this fake validation from men that are willing to put up their money, but they're also most of the time selling their bodies as well, so they're racking up their body count.
The 1950s, yeah, we still stuck to a lot of traditions. Dating and courtship was still around, but we saw it really relax in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. Now, taking a step back, let's talk about marriage. Throughout history, marriage has been an alliance between families, different levels, but in general, you stood within your class.
Marriage has changed a lot. Marriage used to be the method with which women would give up their body. Nowadays, there's almost no benefit from getting married unless you know that woman is absolute gold. And even then, the government got involved. And when the government gets involved in any of our businesses, that can be a problem. Not only financially, but they have, a lot of men that get divorced. They end up getting half their stuff taken away. They can't see their kids, or the time they spend with them is sabotaged.
If you were high class, you married other high class people. If you were lower class, yeah, you didn't really have much chance to get out of there. You were stuck with people in your class because everyone knew where people stood. As such, arranged marriages for most of human history were pretty much the norm. In fact, the idea of a romantic relationship didn't even exist in marriage. I mean, in the 12th century book, The Art of Courtly Love, it stated, true love can have no place between husband and wife.
I think the reason that was said is because in order to love someone truly, it's not going to be a feeling the majority of the time. The majority of the time, it's going to be something that you choose every single day. It's a choice. It's not so much, oh, I feel this way about this person. You have to make that decision. It's something that you have to be conscious of. It's not an unconscious thing that you have no control over. The people that get married because they have this butterflies in their stomach feeling, most of those people get divorced after the first year because when those butterflies go away, and they will, there's nothing left to stand on.
That being said, love, of course, did exist in some arranged marriages. And if you look at arranged marriages as a whole, happiness levels do go up over time because people approach this as, hey, we've got to make this work. We're stuck together. Versus a lot of love marriages start off really happy, but then, yeah, it wears off after a couple years and happiness levels go down.
And the problem is the government got so involved that it gave everyone the out of, oh, I don't like you. Let me I don't like you. Let me just get divorced. And the issue is that it's so easy to just drop and get divorced. And a lot of times the men come out losing.
And they are more likely to lead to divorce. That being said, throughout recorded history, there has been the existence of matchmakers. Nowadays, a lot of us think, oh, I would never use a service like that. Here's the thing, is that this used to be the norm. And those matchmakers, they weren't always like a professional matchmaker. Oftentimes, it was your mother, it was the family unit, it was perhaps a friend or an advisor, somebody that was looking out for the family, somebody that was looking out for the group and said, hey, I know of this boy over here, I know of this girl over here. This would make a perfect alliance. Let's get them together. Now, in 1959, there was a single event with about 100 people involved that would go on to change dating forever. So over at Stanford University, they took 49 men and 49 women, and they started this project called the Happy Families Planning Services. They used a simple questionnaire and an IBM 650 to match those 49 men with those 49 women based on what they perceived to be good compatibility. This, ladies and gentlemen, was the first computer dating service. 6 years later, over at Harvard, they took this to a whole other level. They called it Operation Match. They did about the same thing using a questionnaire and an IBM 1401, but one small difference. They charged for the service $3, and within 6 months, they had made $270,000. That's about almost $2 million in today's dollars. Over in France in the 1980s, using the Minitel network, they started their first pink chat rooms. Basically, you had people talking, not even seeing each other. Again, the idea here was for people that wanted to meet and date.
This is just showing me that dating websites and the idea of dating apps has been around since the beginning of the internet.
Now, the first dating site, Kiss.com, wouldn't launch till 1994, but it was Match.com in 1995 that really took online dating to a whole other level. And let's talk about specialty sites. So if you were Jewish, Yid.com, founded in 1995. Shadi.com, an online wedding service founded over in India. Gaydar, launched in 1999. The name says it all. Christian Mingle, 2001. If you want to break up your marriage, Ashley Madison. Soon we saw the rise of the apps. Grindr, Tinder, Bumble. And that takes us to today. So with all of these options, why are so many people giving up and walking away and saying, you know what, this just isn't worth it? Reason number one, there is no return on investment.
Yeah, exactly what I was talking about earlier. It used to be that you would get married and the protected part of that marriage was the chastity of the woman. You were, at least in the first marriage, you were guaranteed the chastity of that woman most of the time. So you would be the first and only man. And by the way, statistically speaking, if a virgin gets into a marriage, there's an 80% chance that that marriage is going to stay together. And the chances of her wanting to look elsewhere go down because you're the only man that she knows. She has nothing to compare you to. And then now you have women with 20, 30 bodies by the time they hit the age of 30. And you're never going to be like the Giga Chad that she was with because she was gorgeous at 18 and she got with this multimillionaire and hooked up for a weekend. And to her, he's like the best thing since sliced bread for all of eternity in her head. So you're competing with that.
So this quote from Noah right here, honestly, because it's way too much work and too little gain. We're expected to initiate, start contact, ask them out, and sometimes pay for them. Women are expected to just show up.
Thank you for saying that. It's like dating has evolved into this monster where men are expected to do all the work, women are expected to reap all the reward without putting any effort. And then they wonder why a lot of these guys that are successful, Sigma male types, date these girls and they get bored of them so quickly because the girl thinks that it's enough that, oh, I'm pretty, I'm beautiful to look at. You just need to fawn over me. And the men are like, no, you have negative personality. You've never needed to prove yourself. And all I'm asking you is to be a fun person and, you know, bring a couple extra things to the table like,
your right hand is easier to get enjoyment out of than fighting a losing cause. There you have it. Straight up, a lot of guys don't feel it is worth the work. They would just rather have a relationship with Pamela Henderson. Next up, let's talk about how expensive it can be, especially if you're going out for dinner, maybe you're going to a movie, whatever it is you're setting up. You are most likely paying. I know a lot of guys go Dutch, but for a lot of guys that are paying, they're like, hey, it's just not worth it. It can easily go past $100, maybe even $200. If you're in New York City, you're out in Los Angeles, all of a sudden you find you're with somebody and they don't want to meet up again. They ditch you and you are stuck with the check.
There's nothing wrong with that. Risk versus reward is something that men, at least high value men, do on a daily. So yeah, I mean, if you know that you're going to be going out with a girl and she expects you to spend $100, $200, $300 on the first date, that's probably not a girl that you want to keep around. Now, if she's okay going to Starbucks, there is nothing wrong with that. Starbucks, to me, is the ideal first date because if you know that she's giving you a whole bunch of red flags on a coffee date, you can easily eject. If you're sitting there at a dinner table and you have to wait for the order to come, and 10 minutes in you realize, oh my gosh, I need to eject, this girl's crazy, this girl is XYZ, at least you have that option. So if she ends up being a great date, that's where you get to invite her to the longer, a little bit more expensive dates.
Reason number 3, she lies about her appearance. Okay, maybe she's just putting her best foot forward, but you could have sworn in the profile that she put 130 pounds and 5'5", not 5'3", 230 pounds. And there's a big difference there. I mean, it's usually not that extreme, but a lot of you guys have had that. In fact, I've had men tell me, a lot of my friends that are out dating, they're like, hey, I'll look at 5 to 6 photos. Hopefully she's got something up where somebody else took it. And then I can see her from an angle that, isn't maybe so flattering. And I can see if I'm actually attracted to her. Next up, let's talk about the overinflated ego. So many guys listed this as, hey, this woman is used to being able to put up a profile and having 100 guys within a day basically try to grab her attention. And this isn't reality.
That's why one of the first questions I do on a date, if, back when I was in the dating realm, is, do you have an Instagram? And if you do, what's your tag? Nothing beyond that. After that first date, I can look at her Instagram and instantly know what kind of girl that she is. If she's posting half-naked pictures of herself on Instagram, that's not a girl that's going to be high value to me because there's nothing left to the imagination. A whole bunch of guys knows what she looks like in lingerie or a bikini or whatever, and that's not the type of girl that I want. I want a girl that is more modest, more exclusive to me.
Because on the list, she's actually a 4 out of 10. And there's no way that she should have this much attention. And it builds up, overblows her expectations and what she thinks she deserves. Now, personally, I've been out of the dating scene for a long time. But all the research, everyone I've spoken to that's out there, they talk about this. How, as a guy, it's crickets. You're not getting anyone to respond, especially if you're under, 6 foot, if you don't have, a lot of money, if you're not flashing, if you are not in that top 1%, you're not getting anything, it seems like, online versus women. And you can put up an average profile and it seems like she's just getting slammed with, guys that are just thirsty and hungry trying to get her attention. Throw on top of this a culture that says you deserve everything. You deserve the best.
Yeah, it's funny when you break it down like that, you realize that women are far more shallow than men on average, because men are swiping on more than 60% of the women and women are swiping on less than 20% of the men, at least statistically speaking.
go get it, queen. A lot of guys just feel that, hey, this has created a lot of women that have this mindset that, yeah, they expect way too much. The next reason why guys are giving up on dating, I am going to blame Chad. Yes, that top 1% of guys that seems to get all of the women online. It seems like that 1% is getting 99% of women online fawning after him. Why is this happening? It didn't seem to happen in the past. And that is true to an extent. Let's talk about what the internet brought. It reduced friction to almost zero. So literally, instead of having to go to a place and meet up when you have a limited group there and you've got to kind of make do with what is present, most of us simply go online and there is unlimited choice.
I'm going to add a layer to that. It gave women access to these men as far as talking and sometimes dating, but not tying them down to marriage. That is something that only the top 5-10% of looks of women are able to achieve, but only if they know how to play their cards right, they know how to act in really high value situations, they know how to dress, they know how to act around high value people. They're not a mess in public, they don't act a fool, stuff like that.
And to be able to go through that unlimited choice, you just need to flick your finger. So literally, the friction is almost zero. Next up, out of economics, we get the winner takes all. And this is where someone that is just slightly better than others is going to draw in the vast majority. Think about it. If you walk into a store and you got $500, do you want the second best, the third best, or the best product that you can get for your money? Maybe it's a phone, maybe it's a camera, whatever it may be. You want the best for your money. And that's the same with people online. Everyone wants to go for the best that they can get. But in a friction high situation, let's say you walk into a room and there are 20 people and there were 10 men, 10 women, and each of them have numbers on their head. There was a great experiment that did this. What's going to happen if you tell everyone, hey, match up with the highest number quickly? So the 10 is going to find either a 9 or a 10. Everyone's going to gravitate towards those 10s. They will be taken quickly. And then the 8s, then the 9s, or 7s. You get the point. It's just going to go down. If you are a 1, if you are a 2, if you are a 3, you're going to find that everyone is turning away from you. And you are going to learn that, hey, I'm not bringing, or I'm not as attractive, or there's just something about me that is turning off other people. And eventually you're going to look around. There's only going to be a set number of people left, and you're going to want to pair up quickly so that you at least have someone to go with. I know it is cruel, but it's the way things are. But online, this has disappeared. So what you get is this top percentage has their pick. And the reality is a lot of these top guys, they still want to eventually pair up, perhaps, if they do want to pair up, with someone that is at the same level and caliber. Now, being men, one of the things with guys is that they don't mind just a hookup for the night.
Guys want something that's, quote, on their level. Girls are usually hypergamous, so they are going to want guys that are a little bit above them. Does the case exist where women who are making all this money date broke men? Sure, but it is just not that common.
Or for a couple nights, whatever it may be. And if no one's going to find out about it, yeah, she's a 4, but no one's going to know, I got nothing going on. Let's make it happen. But what this does to the other side is it sometimes gives them a false sense of, hey, I hooked up with a 9, I hooked up with a 10. This is what I deserve or I should end up with. And the reality is that was just a hookup for that other person. And it maybe inflated their ego to a level and makes it much more harder. Again, because they were just other 9s that will continue to hook up with them, and they find 5 years down the road that, yeah, this is just taking me down a path that now I can't even hook up with people that are at my same level. And to throw on top of that, let's talk about the paradox of choice and why that's making dating even worse. Because if you only had 10 people that you could potentially date, okay, it's almost like an arranged marriage. You would say, she's attractive enough, or it's good enough. We're going to make this work. Let's build a life together. And this is what happened for the majority of people would marry somebody that was just within a couple miles of them. And this is most of recorded history. Now I met my wife and she's on the other side of the world. And I'll talk a little bit about that story at the end of this video.
A lot of people back in the olden times would usually marry someone they've been introduced to either in school or a friend of the family, honestly. And in my case, the woman that I'm with now was literally a friend of the family. I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just the internet has given us, both men and women, access to so much that sometimes it can be overwhelming when we're skipping out on the real life value in creating those relationships in person instead of trying to go out there and meet someone on the internet.
But, most times that paradox of choice, though, comes with consequences because you are always wondering if you're in a decent relationship and it's good, everything seems hunky-dory, but you hear these stories about, oh, this other couple, they're traveling the world, they're infatuated with each other, the grass is greener on the other side. So because you have so many choices nowadays with online options, people oftentimes give up a good for the chance at what they perceive to be amazing. And this can lead to, I think, a lot of regret because they pass up or they give up on a relationship that was actually great, but they didn't see it because they were chasing something else.
All right, guys, I want you to be honest with yourselves. And if you think that maybe there's a girl in your life that you didn't pull the trigger on, that you didn't commit to, that you think maybe would have been better for you if you just decided, you know what, this is the girl I actually wanted. If there's any of you like that, leave a comment below. I want to read your story.
And let's talk about those filter factors. You have to go into this actually knowing what you like. And one of the reasons a lot of guys are giving up on dating, and they don't even know what they want. A lot of guys say that women don't know what they want, but a lot of guys don't know either. And that's one of the more interesting things about talking and meeting with people in person. As you engage with them, you spend more time with them, you start to discover the things that you want and what you don't want. One of the advantages, I think, of being a little bit older, especially if you pay attention, is you start to identify, hey, this is important to me and I'm not going to compromise here. But initially, you got people that are going out there and saying, oh, I want someone to be this height, or I want them to have this build. I want them to have these hobbies. I want them to live within this amount of distance from me. Versus, there's no filters if you think about it for what type of relationship does this person have with their family and friends. But that's actually, I know for me, one of the biggest determinants. When I met my wife, I was just really impressed with the way that she treated her family, the relationship we had with all of her friends. I didn't have the best relationship with my family, and I knew I wanted to create a family. Like looking back, I can see that I saw that, but that's something that when you're going in and creating these filters, you initially don't know. So we're being drawn into identifying certain characteristics, which at the end of the day, do they matter that much?
I agree with him here. I would say that the most important categories that you should be looking at is not so much geared towards physical appearance. You may end up with someone that at least has all of the morals and values that you really wanted. So she's going to be a girl that is very nurturing, that keeps the peace at home, that is willing to talk with you and conversate. She's willing to talk about your problems without getting annoyed. She's not going to terrorize you just for the smallest things. She's going to be someone that helps you in life. But she may not be the exact height you want, the exact weight you want. She may not have perfect teeth. She may not have bright blue eyes or whatever it is you're into. She may not be a blonde. She might be a brunette. But she'll be that nice, homey girl. That could also be a good thing.
Now, this next reason why guys are giving up on dating, I don't think is necessarily bad, and that is there's less societal pressure from families, from friends, from, just simply, governments in general. They're not pressing this down except over in Singapore. But no, seriously, you don't have society as a whole frowning down upon the fact that people can be dating. They can actually be in a long-term relationship. They can have kids in those relationships without getting married. People having sex before marriage is not nearly, as frowned upon as it used to be. And for a lot of people, this is a great thing. Tons of guys love the hookup culture. Personally, I do think that it would be great to be in a long-term relationship, and I'll talk about my stance on all this at the end of this video. But, tons of guys out there say, hey, this is even better for us because we don't have to, commit to marriage and we get all the fruits. And of course, let's address the elephant in the room. Half of marriages end in divorce. So a lot of guys are like, if the end goal is to get married only to have a 50-50 shot of it failing, why in the world am I even going down this path?
This is going back to what Myron said on Fresh and Fit. He's like, if you have a 50% chance of survival by jumping off at an airplane with a parachute, why jump? So I kind of get it. I get why a lot of men aren't getting married anymore, and it has to do with the modern dating culture.
Seriously, I read this comment by this guy named Dan Cody, and he said, how does being in a romantic relationship make my life better? I used to think of long-term committed relationships as the pinnacle of human experience, but in recent years, I've wondered. Now, my parents enjoyed a loving 55-year marriage, and that was my example. But when I compare long-term couples today to my dating experiences, we're on different planets. It used to be people grew up together. There's deep communication, trust, and affection. By comparison, people on dating sites are justifiably wary. It's a very long road to what exactly? Companionship? I've got that with good friends. Love? I've also got that with good friends. Sex? Okay, that may be an addiction, but loveless sex is somewhere between opportunistic at best and misleading at worst. It's hardly fulfilling, yet many women are looking for just that. I'm better off, at least for now, going to dinners, on bike rides, kayak trips, skiing, and to musical performances with my friends. And I have to admit, gents, as a married guy, I completely see Dan's point here. So all that being said, what if you want a long-term relationship? What if you want to get married? What if you want to date? How to make it better? Well, gents, my answer is if I know, but seriously, I don't have the solution, but I do have 5 kids and I want them to have loving, meaningful relationships. So this in general is going to be the advice I give them. First up, have your standards. Know what's important to you, and on those areas, don't bend. That being said, when you find someone that you can build a life with, it's okay to compromise in certain areas. I know I used to be a very organized and I thought like incredibly, a little bit OCD kind of person. My wife, not so much. And I've learned that I can live with, yes, a little bit of a messy house because there's so much other joy that is brought to us, just the messiness that is life. Next up, be the person that you would want to date. I'm not saying have a
100%. I think that so many people underestimate that sometimes the reason you're not getting the girls that you want is literally because you wouldn't even date yourself. Get to the point where you can be at least proud of your accomplishments. Don't boast about them. Be confident in who you are, confident in the things that you want. Continue on life. Don't be afraid of rejection. Be yourself. Be true to who you are. Don't tell a girl whatever you think she wants to hear. Tell them what you actually mean and feel, and they will respect you so much more.
Sex change here. What I'm saying though is be your best self. If you want to date someone that's in shape, then get yourself into shape. If you want to date someone that doesn't get drunk and crazy, well, don't be going out there getting drunk and crazy. The next tip, stay in touch with traditional matchmakers. No, I'm not talking professionals. I'm talking your parents. I'm talking your siblings, your friends, people you know at work.
That goes back to what I said earlier. A lot of people in the past, they're taking this for granted nowadays. A lot of the girls that you may end up missing out on that have the morals and values that you want are going to be the ones that are friends of the family, they're friends of coworkers, they're friends of people that you already get along with, they're people in your inner circle, the people that have wanted to stay with you because they have those same values. So that's important. Don't take that for granted.
Those people right there have historically and for a long time been great sources of finding. Yes, I know a lot of people are online dating. You're meeting people through all these apps, but that is still not even 30% of relationships. The other 70% are still met in these other ways, through church, through volunteer organizations. And it may not seem like it at times, but these matchmakers, these friends, your family, they are actually looking out for you and they are kind of vetting these people. So all of a sudden they're saying, hey, there's this great girl, you know her sister, but that she's back home from college or she's back from graduate school. You got to meet her. This all of a sudden they're trying to make things happen. And the idea here is that, she's not crazy, or at least, no one has been able to detect this so far. She's actually going to a decent school. She's got a good head on her shoulders. She's cute. At least that's what your mom says. So why not take them up on it, guys? This is a great way to meet people. Pick up a hobby, start swing dancing, join a Dungeons and Dragons club. Yes, I've got a friend, he met a beautiful girl at a Dungeons and Dragons group that he just happened to be at. He's in the cosplay, she's into it too, and all of a sudden, he's looking to propose to her here soon, and he wouldn't have expected this. She's a lawyer, she's amazing, she's beautiful. What in the world was she doing there? Well, guys, you're never going to find these type of people unless you put yourself out there. And yes, you are going to fail. You are going to ask somebody out and they're going to turn you down because they got a boyfriend. But here's the deal, gents. You at least swung. You took a chance. And lastly, gents, don't give up on love. Now, I'm paraphrasing Jeff Bezos here, but he said that failure and success are inseparable twins. To succeed, you have to risk, and if you already know what the outcome's going to be, there's no risk involved. Now, most people are not willing to go through the failures to be able to win with an outsized return. And by an outsized return, imagine if there was a 1 in 10 chance that you could get a 100 payoff. Guys, you would want to take that bet every day. Now, when you take that bet, 9 out of 10 times you're going to fail. But whenever you connect, whenever you hit, all of a sudden you are getting a 100 times return. So let's equate this with marriage. Now, you know 50% of marriages are going to fail. So you have a 50% chance of the marriage lasting. Of that, let's say that half are happy marriages. So you got 25% left. And of that, let's just say that 10% of marriages are really happy, or ones that you would want to be in. So a 1 in 10 chance to having a great marriage. Yet a great marriage, if that's going to improve your life by 100 times, possibly, I think it's like by 1,000 times, if it's like winning the lottery, and I think it is, when you have a great life partner, then you want to go for that. You want to take that bet every time. Now, for me, I've been with my wife 20 years. In fact, I told her I was going to marry her after meeting her, just for, maybe it was a trick to try to get into her pants. Point being is I wrote her a letter and I told her I'm going to marry her, and I had to fly to the other side of the world twice. I was interrupted by a deployment, then interrupted by a war, but I got my way over there and I showed her that I was serious. And I have to say that the romanticism, maybe the separation apart, us writing letters, then emails, and living over there, yeah, we've had our ups and downs, but overall for me, a long-term relationship with someone I've been able to build a life with has been something that is incalculable in how much I value this. And it's really, it's my life. And it's something that I wouldn't trade for the world.
All right, guys, you think this guy was spitting facts? Put your comments in the video. I'd like to see what you guys have to say. As always, catch you in the next one. Fembros React out.